Welcome to Belmont Banter, the official podcast of Whitstable Town FC. Every week we chat to ex-players, supporters and invited guests here on Belmont Banter.
Welcome to the official podcast of Whitstable Town FC.
Whitstable Town Football Club's main sponsor is Fibertech UK Limited.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Belmont Banter. And I know I've said it before, and I've said that we've got a special guest on, but we have tonight. We've got Steve Marshall on. Steve, it's a pleasure to have you on, mate. And you're going to start off by telling us about your earliest memory as far as football's concerned.
Yeah, my earliest memory, Tony, it starts in Peterborough. I was born and bred in Peterborough. And when I was aged 6 or 7 years old, then I used to go and watch my dad, who played for a works team. And he was a goalie. And I used to dive down behind the goal for a gap in the fence. And I used to boot the ball, whether it was me or with my sister or whoever was down there. We used to boot the ball against an old factory. And for hours, for what seemed hours, it probably wasn't, and I could always see my dad because he was up there in goal, and I could probably see the other end of the pitch as well. So that's my first memory, and it got me into the dressing room as well a little bit. Obviously not for long. There's always a lot of language around time. But he tried to protect me, my dad. I think there was a lot of characters in that side. And so that was my first memory.
Was he playing sort of semi-professional, or what was his team like?
Well, I think he played a little bit. I think he said he played for Tooting and Mitcham when he was younger, but up in Peterborough, he didn't. He played in the Peterborough League, in the relatively lower reaches. But he just played for his works. He worked for Freeman's Mail Order, who were based up in Peterborough. And they had a nice ground, and they had a nice social club, and he played for them. They had some real good players playing for them. Some of them, a guy called Craig Goldsmith, he ended up playing for Peterborough about 4 or 5 years after he played for Freeman. So he was a good player.
Wow,
good characters.
Yeah, you get them, don't you? You do get them in football.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So after that, Tony, that kind of got me the bug of football, and I played for my school. I think it was third and fourth year, which is now year 5 and year 6, and I was a forward, and I did well, and so that was my first taste of playing in a team.
Were you quite tall as a youngster, or was it a late spurt?
No, I was one of the bigger ones at school. Yeah, I wasn't massive or anything, but certainly wasn't the tallest. But I was okay at that age. So I was okay for a centre forward, and I was quite quick then. So
you've always played up front then? Oh
no, I haven't actually. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So. After primary school, Tony, the school I went to didn't actually play football, and they played rugby and cricket. So I played for a team called Walton and played with some friends that I knew, and everything was going okay. Still playing up front, but I was at school, so I didn't really get that school playing, and it wasn't as serious. There was no representative or nothing like that. And we went to the team Walton. We went to about under 13s, and then we moved over to about 4 or 5 of us moved over to a club called St John Fisher. And St John Fisher was kind of a school club type thing, and then things sort of picked up a little bit for me there. I got a bit of recognition and did okay. Played up front, and then. Under 15s, believe it or not, Tony, I got picked for the Peterborough boys side, and the guy played me sweeper. What he used to do, he used to he played 3 at the back with 2 real good centre halves, and he used to put me behind, and I used to play a bit. I used to come out with the ball. Do you know what? It worked. I don't know how. As we'll come to later on, I got found out in the end. I was really a forward. But yeah, at age 15, I was a forward. I was a centre half. Yeah, but I was always bombing forward. I couldn't help it because I was a forward up until that point.
And how long did you stay in that position then?
Well, I was from about under 15s, under 16s. I was playing there, and then the team St John Fisher kind of run its course, and the guy who was running it had some contacts with a non-league club called Baker Perkins. Now, do you remember the company Baker Perkins, Tony?
I don't. Refresh my memory.
Well, they used to make printing presses and baking equipment, and they were a big company in Peterborough. And they had a non-league team that was in the United Counties League. Now, the United Counties League is the equivalent to the Kent League up there, and they had a really beautiful works ground. It's called Westwood Works, but it was Alma Road, and Alma Road. Everyone knew Alma Road. It was a ground that was right in the centre of town, about a mile away from the town centre, and it was the only non-league ground that floodlights, apart from obviously Peterborough United. Baker Perkins had a real good reputation as being a big club. They had floodlights, which was, for at the time, it was great. And our youth team moved over there en masse. And what they did is they set up a Baker Perkins youth team, and our year. So we have 2 years at under 18s, and our year ended up being the first year of the under 18s, and that is where. Essentially, I probably got my start in football. If I hadn't have had that, then I'm not sure I would have continued to keep on progressing. Because as soon as I got there, I started at centre half. Like I said, soon got found out against some good sides and good centre forwards, and they put me back up front, because the manager knew that I'd played up front before, and so I ended up getting into the reserves and doing okay for a couple of games, and the manager for the first team. So Baker Perkins were at the lower reaches of the United Counties League, and what they did is they struggled. There was some good clubs, Holbeach, Spalding, Bourne Town, clubs like that. You may have heard of them, Tony. You may not.
Yeah, I've heard of Spalding, definitely.
Yeah, but Baker Perkins were at the lower reaches of that end, and the manager decided to take a bit of a punt on me in a cup game. What was the Hinchinbrook Cup? I'll never forget it. It was my debut for Baker Perkins' first team at Alma Road, in front of quite a big crowd, a couple of hundred people, and I got 4 goals first game. And the manager, my dad told me. Nice story. The manager, again, Paul Arthur, God rest his soul, he's died now, but he turned around to the crowd, or to the stand, and he just went, "Oh, he told you so." and my dad said he couldn't believe it, and I think there was a bit of, I think he got a bit, well, not a bit of stick for picking me, but there was some experienced guys there, guys like Gary Scotcher, Dave McQuillan. These guys were real, top players in that area, and that Paul Arthur took a gamble on me, and it paid off, and that was my start. From then on, it went downhill that season, because I was a 17-year-old playing in a man's league, and the United Counties League, tough league, real tough league, and it was a relegation battle, and I think eventually we ended up getting enough points, and Paul the manager said to me, Paul and Dave Lamb, who was the assistant, they said to me, well, there's no pressure on us now. We're safe, and you're going to play now to the end of the season. And then I picked up again.
Wow.
I know. Age 17, you don't know. You don't know the pressures of what's going on. You're just trying to sort of make your way in the game.
Yeah.
But as soon as that pressure was off, all of a sudden I picked up again to the end of that season. So that was in the February. That was in the February of about 88, 89 it was. And that was my start. And then I was there. Then I was away.
You was away. So still in Peterborough.
Yeah, still in Peterborough. Yeah.
Did you stay with the side, same team?
Yeah, stayed with the side the following season. On and off for about 3 or 4 seasons. That was kind of my home. And the following season, I was still playing in the under-18s because it was my second season. I'm playing in the first team as well. Played a few Vars games, played a few FA Cup games. Brilliant, fantastic. And then I got a real bad injury. I got injured. I did my medial knee ligaments, and I was in plaster, and I tried to come back too quick, and it wasn't right, and I kind of drifted away because I knew things weren't right with my knee, and then I moved away. I moved away from home. Went away to college and lived in London for a couple of years. But I was travelling back to Peterborough to obviously see parents, see friends, and back to football. So I kept going back to Baker Perkins, and eventually we sort of, we didn't fall out or anything, but it was just I've kind of limped back into the side. But then back then, Tony, there was the works teams that were doing well in non-league football were starting to they weren't really using their facilities to the best of their abilities, and they decided to sell Alma Road, so they ended up being like a nomad club.
Yeah.
But that lasted for a couple of years, and I think I signed for Stamford for a little while during this period for a guy called Chris Corby, and he persuaded me to go there, and I wasn't really fit, Tony. Someone asked me, and I went, and I wasn't there for very long, and I just sort of limped back into whatever else I was, living in London. It wasn't great. And so that was Baker Perkins, and then it turned into APV Baker, Peterborough City, which was all the same club, but they moved around for different grounds, and the old Fortress ground in Peterborough, which is not there anymore. And then I did all right in one season. I ended up doing in one season. I played with a guy called Dale Watkins, who was a school friend of mine, and he went on to. He went off and did a YTS at Sheppey United, and he turned up at Baker Perkins or at Peterborough City, and me and him played really well together for about half a season. A guy called Alan Day signed me for Amesbury Rovers, and in halfway through the season, and he was one of these guys, a bit like Tommy Sampson, a bit like John Roseman. He was a real character in that area, and he'd always assemble a good side. And when he decided to sign me, when he approached me to sign me, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when Alan Day, blimey.
Oh yeah.
And I signed for them, Amesbury Rovers, which is a club in St Neots, Tony, which is about 20 miles south of Peterborough, and things really took off for me there. I did well the rest of that season, and the following season, I think it was about 1993. I scored about 20 goals before Christmas, and I was flying. I was loving it there. It was the best time that I'd ever had.
Yeah.
I was fit, and then all of a sudden, as often happens at these clubs, the chairman decided to leave. So that meant that the manager left, and that means half the players left, and I got approached. By Boston United, believe it or not, and they persuaded me to go there with a bit of wrangling with the club, because I think they had a contract that I was on, but I think it was an under the counter contract, and they did a deal together, and I ended up signing for them, and it was the worst thing I ever did. I wish I'd stayed there. It was too high level for me. The manager was a guy called Peter Morris, who's got a real proven track record of signing non-league players and moving them on and getting them into the pro game, which is how he sold it to me. But he did it. He didn't just do it for me. He did it for about 3 or 4 other players at exactly the same time, and I didn't do very well. And after a month, he released me. He just said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I'm releasing you now, and you can go and sign for whoever you want." Okay.
Wow.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So after a month, Tony.
Wow.
After a month, yeah. I think I had 2 substitute appearances, and I travelled the length and breadth of the country, Whitley Bay, Morecambe, places like that. That was my experience with playing for them, Boston.
And how do you feel you played, looking back now?
No, I didn't do very well, and I didn't do myself justice. But
fair enough.
There's no. I can try and dress it up and make excuses, but you sometimes know. And there was players there, Tony, who I used to watch when I was 13 or 14, play for Peterborough. People like Noel Luke, David Riley. These are Paul Bastock was still there. he was in goal, and they were all good guys. You know, I just didn't do very well, and I wasn't good enough. I know.
It pays to be honest, Steve. You know, you on the table.
There was no two ways about it. And after a month and being released, I went to a club called Holbeach, and Holbeach is another club in United Counties League. So I dropped down I was back to my level where I was, and there I was. Steve Evans signed me. You know, the Gillingham manager now. Yeah. Steve signed me, and after a month or so there, Alan Day asked me to go back with him, and he'd taken over at Spalding, and you know, it just didn't work out at Holbeach, and I signed back for Alan Day for Spalding, and I stayed there until about 96. Yeah, that was when I came down to Kent.
Whitstable Town Football Club's main sponsor is Fibertech UK Limited.
So that was it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. What was the reason for moving down to Kent then?
I moved down for work, Tony.
Oh right.
I got a job. I got a job in Maidstone at Printers.
Yeah.
And it was better prospects for me down here, and yeah, that was the reason why I came.
And how did you get yourself back into the football down at Maidstone then? What was the first step?
Well, it was Barry Bundock. Barry Bundock. Do you remember Barry?
Yes, I do. He was involved with the league, wasn't he, Barry Bundock?
Barry Bundock was a guy, and he met up with Sharon, who was my ex-wife, and I think that they started talking about football, and then my name was mentioned, and he said, "Come down to Sheppey." So that was where we met our old friend Tony.
Yes, Mr. Roseman.
Yeah, Mr. Roseman, and John Roseman was the manager, and this was in, I think it was 96. I think it was the 96-97 season. So it was I moved down in 96. There was no football when I moved down, and then once the season started, I managed to get myself known to Mr. Roseman, and I made my debut against Whitstable.
What, at Sheppey or at Whitstable?
It was at Faversham's ground.
Oh right, yes, yeah.
So it was a midweek game, and I knew no one. And I turned up, and I think Lee Boston scored 2 goals, and I won't forget that.
No,
because that was my first ever game, and I came on a sub, and nothing happened. And then the following Saturday, I came on a sub and I scored. So that was away you go.
That starts it, yeah.
Yeah, that was away you go. So that was where I first came across John.
Good side did he have there?
Yeah, well, that Sheppey, that season, it was the season after they won the league. So where they had Phil Collins up front, Dave Powell, Andy Biggington up front, I think, for their league winning side. I think I wasn't there, but people tell me. But those 3 weren't there. But some of the other side were. So you had Paul Bagley, you had Colin Ford was still playing, you had Terry Cordice, you had
was Laney there at the time?
Laney was in goal. Yeah, Laney was in goal. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, Laney. All of those characters, every one of those guys that I've mentioned, brilliant guys. Scott Forbes was there.
Wow.
Yeah, he was there.
What a side!
And yeah, it was a good side. And up front, we had Mark Greatrix. Do you remember him?
Yes, I do.
Glenn Payne, Lee Annett,
and Steve Marshall.
And well, yeah, but I was just who the hell's he? And it was like that, Tony. You can't just bowl into an area, and
no.
You have to inch your way into the scene, and that's what I did. Yeah, that's what I did for the rest of that season. I was sort of I think I got 12 or 13 goals, and I managed to stick around for the following season. And where did they go then? I think they went to Canterbury then. Yes. I think I think John was still the manager, and then Mal Watkins took over during that season, and it was a similar side, but there was some new additions. and we had a real good side that year. And he brought in some friends of his, Neil Pheasant. Neil, Mal, and Terry were prison guards, and they were tough. Oh, Tony, they were so tough. They were so hard. They used to rock the opposition, and it just made it for forwards. It was brilliant. They got it forward. Matt Toms played for us. Wayne Barlow, Glenn Barlow was there. Laney was still there. Cliff Hearn. You know, these guys who are the kind of they won't say it, but they're legends of Kent football. Those guys.
Well, you've just rocked through about 6 or 7 people that I've had on the podcast.
Yeah, I know. I've heard them all, Tom. I've heard them all.
Incredible.
They're brilliant.
And isn't it weird how many lives John Roseman's touched?
John Roseman, yeah, he has. But he was he used to bring everyone together, Tony. Yeah. He used to create a real good team spirit. He did, wherever he went.
He was a character, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, he's a real character. He used to get players around. He used to get players. There was even then. I've heard you guys talk about the London crew at Whitstable.
Yeah.
He had the same at Sheppey. So he would have players like Paul Eggington, Eggy, brilliant player. Brian Henry, who was a goalkeeper. He was a character. Didn't play too much, but he was a real good character to have in the dressing room, in the side. Perry Whedon, who's once again he passed away now. Braggy was at Sheppey as well. These guys came down and they just added so much to the whole scene, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, Tony.
It sounds as if you did. And you just touched on something there. You said all about all the guys in, the atmosphere, the camaraderie. Yeah. That really, somebody said to me the other day, over a season, that will win you 10 points. That togetherness, that bonding, doesn't matter how good you are, that will get you another 10 points.
Yeah, I don't think that can ever be underestimated, your team spirit. Managers can assemble who they like. Finances can often dictate who you get to a club, but what the finances can't do is it can't build that spirit. It can't, because you can end up with an incorrect mix of players. It just won't work, no matter how good the players are.
Yeah, no, it's really good to hear you talk like that, because that's my feelings about football as well. It's about the guys on the pitch, but it's about the whole of it as well. It's about the feeling around the club. It's about the committee and how involved they are, the supporters. They all play a part, don't they?
Everything plays a part, and you throw it all into the mix, and sometimes it just doesn't work. But when it does work, Tony, and I've been lucky enough, and it's worked at many clubs that I've been to. Some clubs it hasn't, but most of the clubs that I've been to have been a real good dressing room, a real good mix of people, real good mix of guys, with behind the scenes as well. And I'm now a little bit involved in a different sporting club, but I know what goes on behind the scenes. Yeah. I never thought I would.
Yeah, sure.
I never thought I'd get involved in anything like that.
At the time, then, you're at Sheppey still, but you're playing at Canterbury, because they were a bit of a nomad club for a while, weren't they, Sheppey? Yeah,
they didn't have a ground for a while, and that's that season that Mal was the manager. Well, he was manager for 3/4 of the season, or most of the season. I can't remember exactly when John decided to leave. But that season, I won the Golden Boot that year, so that was a good season for me. And then John approached me to go to Chatham. John, towards the end of the season, or it might have even been, it was towards the end of the season. He approached me, said, "Next season, would you like to come to Chatham?" And do you know what? He persuaded me, and I wanted to go, so I agreed to go with him. And he ended up not staying at Chatham, so I agreed with him that I would go to where his next club was, and it was Cray. So the following season, I ended up at Cray, which was a bit of a surprise for me, because I lived in Sittingbourne, and Sheppey, unbeknown to me, decided to take over Central Park. So I'm living in Sittingbourne, and I can see the ground from my house, Tony, and that's not an exaggeration. I can see the ground, and I've agreed to go, and I went with John, and I spent I spent a month, 6 weeks, 2 months at Cray. Just the pull of going back to Sheppey was too much, so I left and went back to Sheppey because of the ground, and it was just so close, and they were on the main pitch, so it was when Central Park was, it was full on. Oh, it was a fantastic. The dressing rooms were enormous, and but it really appealed to me because it was so close to where I lived. It was unusual. I've always travelled for football. It's not been I don't mind travelling. But to have that on my doorstep was a real lure for me at the time, and Sheppey as well. Sheppey were a good club and they had good people behind them. There was Peter Sharrock, and obviously Barry was still there. I know Barry's not with us anymore, which is sad. But they were good people and they had good supporters as well. So yeah, I did like it at Sheppey. Sheppey was kind of for early on before they ended up folding. That was kind of my go-to. Go to the club.
Yeah, it's where you feel comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they made me welcome there, and I did enjoy it. I did enjoy myself there.
And so, how long did you stay at Sheppey then?
Well, so that would have been if you're with the Cray part of it, that would have been my sort of third season with Sheppey, because I saw that season out for them. And then in the summer, in that summer, I think it was 98, going in 98, 99, they a guy called Colin McBride rang me up, and Colin McBride was manager of Purfleet. They were a couple of leagues above the Kent League at the time. And they don't exist anymore, I don't think. I think the club's folded. So did it change? Yeah, I think they've gone, haven't they? And I met with him, and I met with Tommy South. And they persuaded me to go there, which was in the Ryman Premier at the time. And the Ryman Premier at the time wasn't below the conference. This was the league that was feeding the conference. It was quite a jump for me, Tony. It was brilliant. It was great. I had a good 4 months there, and they were really, once again, really friendly people. But it was just a bit much for me. I think although I was doing okay, and no one was, leaving me on the sidelines or anything like that, and no one was treating me like I wasn't good enough. I never thought I was good enough for them. I never did. They had people like Paul Allen playing for them. Remember Paul Allen?
Paul Allen, yeah.
Yeah, youngest cup final player.
Yeah.
And Martin Hayes.
Wow.
He used to play for Arsenal.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
They were all playing. This will make you laugh, Tone. The first time they ever saw me was a pre-season game, and the pre-season game was against West Ham. Now, West Ham do these pre-season games, don't they, to a lot of clubs. I don't think anyone really knows who's going to play. Well, no one knew this night either. But when Frank Lampard and John Hartson started turning up, everyone had their phones out. And I'm walking into this dressing room, and they've never seen me before, hadn't even been training. And that was my first time they'd seen me. And I mean, I played second half. I came on second half, and I was up against, I don't know, Ian Pearce or someone enormous who won everything in the air. And somewhere along the line, we won a penalty. It wasn't me that won it, but I ended up being right next to the ball on the penalty spot. As I turned round with the ball in my hand to give it to sort of, Darren Pitcher or another ex-pro who was playing, no one said a word. No one looked at me. No one did it. And I couldn't very well turn around and just throw the ball down. I had to take it, and I missed.
I thought you were going to tell me a fairy tale then.
No. That'd be just too obvious. Ludek McCloskey saved it. It was a terrible penalty. I think my days were numbered when that happened.
Oh, he was a good keeper though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a good keeper. Yeah, he played the second half, and I think Shaka Hislop played the first half. I mean, it was just ridiculous. There was thousands there, but there wasn't to start with. These people all sort of milled in once everyone got on their phones.
Oh, everyone got on their phones. Yeah,
and they were all playing. So anyway, I signed for them, and they were happy with me. And the first game of the season comes along, and I wasn't even in the squad. Not in the squad. I'm scratching my head thinking, what's going on? And the manager brought me to one side and he said, well, we've got this player. And we didn't know he was going to get international clearance. and he has, and he's playing. So I didn't even get change time. I stood and watched the game.
Oh, goodness me.
I know. It's different. It's a different world, and this happened a few times. I mean, they got me into the side eventually, and I scored a few goals. But eventually, I ran my course. I did it for 3 or 4 months, and then in the end, I didn't. I wanted to play. To play.
Well, Mark Mundy tells a similar story to you, in the sense that he was playing in a side that was in the Southern League. He was at a very young age. I think he was about 19 or 20 or however old he was. He certainly wasn't he wasn't a man as such. And he decided, because he wanted to play football and he knew he wasn't quite good enough there, he just stepped back and he went and played for Thanet United. And then worked his way back. Then he played for Ramsgate, and then but in the end, he got back into the conference. So
I know. I was there with Muns when I was briefly at Margate, and brilliant player,
great
guy, and a good guy as well. Because
he's a really good guy, isn't he?
He made me really welcome at Margate when I was there.
All right, Steve. Well, we're at the stage where you've been at Purfleet. You've told a nice couple of little stories. I think we'll stop it there because we've got part 2 coming up later on. So from Steve Marshall on the other end of a phone and me here at Belmont Banter, this is it, folks, for Steve Marshall part 1. But listen out for part 2. Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers.
Whitstable Town Football Club's main sponsor is Fibertech UK Limited. They are providers of optical fibre services to the telecoms industry, specialising in optical fibre provision, local and long haul. We offer a full turnkey solution to our clients throughout London and the south of England. Contact us through the website for more details.
Your host, Tony Rouse, every week on Belmont Banter for news about local football in Kent and beyond.
I do hope that you've enjoyed today's episode of Belmont Banter. Don't forget there's a new episode out every week which comes out on a Sunday night, early Monday morning. And you can leave your suggestions for a guest to invite at the end. And leave a like, and don't forget to pass it on to all your mates. Cheers!